Friends, support for Authentic South comes from listeners like you. Consider making a donation. Anything is appreciated. Just go to AuthenticSouth.com. Well, go ahead.
Most people can't remember their best day at work. I've never forgotten mine. It was October 18th, 1977, and I hadn't been working at Southern Living very long, and the publisher asked me to cover a rodeo in South Texas in a town called Beeville.
This is Les Thomas, a veteran travel writer who lives in Birmingham, Alabama.
I didn't really want to cover this rodeo, but we went on, and the photographer went with me, and we'd been down there for a couple of days, and I was trying to think of an excuse, and I said, well, we'd like to stay the whole week, but I need to get up to Dallas. And the oil man who was putting on or one of the sponsors of the Western Week said, well, that's no problem. We can fly you back to Dallas in my Learjet, you and the photographer. And I said, that'll be great. He said, yeah, the pilot's got to take the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders home anyway. So the cheerleaders had been there in the rodeo parade, so we took off that evening, and I'm sitting in the plane, and we're about 25,000 feet over South Texas, and the photographer talked to the cheerleaders, but I spent the whole time praying. I was hoping that the plane would go down because I thought it would be worth it for our friends to pick up the newspaper the next day and read that Les Thomas, travel editor at Southern Living magazine, went down in a Learjet today with a half a dozen Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders aboard. But I knew in my heart what it would really say if the plane went down and an unidentified travel editor was the only casualty. Thank God the cheerleaders are all right. Photographs by Southern Living.
Oh, that's great.
I was thinking, this is a lot better job than I thought it was going to be.
I'm Tanner Latham, and this is Authentic South. It's a storytelling podcast that explores Southern culture through food and art, music, travel, the land, and lots of interesting characters. Today's episode is part of a series called Southern Storytellers, and it features Les, a man whose career spanned nearly 45 years, first as a Texas newspaper reporter and then as a travel writer for Southern Living magazine. You just have to picture Les. He has a full head of silver hair, bushy eyebrows, and a mustache. He is a giant of a man, stands 6'5". Les drinks a lot of coffee, usually about a gallon a day. He says it's a holdover from his time at newspapers. And when he wraps his immense hands around a coffee cup, it looks like he's holding a piece of a child's tea set. Les was a heavyweight Golden Gloves boxer and a champion arm wrestler, one time beating several Dallas Cowboys football players to win a trip to Hawaii. Les grew up in Bedford, Texas, a suburb of Fort Worth. Before he finished college, he worked nights at the Mid-Cities Daily News in Hurst, Texas. Then he got on at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, where he was the state editor.
I remember one time I wanted to find a town that had never had television, so I went to Lahitas in Big Bend, and they'd never had television. They didn't even have very good radio in those days. It was so far out that you drove till all your radio signals went off the radio, and you knew you were there.
What did you discover in Lahitas? Yeah.
Well, Lahitas was almost as far from Fort Worth as Fort Worth is to Atlanta. It's nearly the same distance, and there's a lot of wide open spaces between there. But I remember they had a goat that it was a colorful little place. They had a goat that they elected mayor when I was there, and you could buy the goat a drink and have a drink with the mayor. And they landed airplanes right on the main highway. The fellow who ran it was just a trading post in those days, and the fellow who ran it was a private pilot, so he would just wait till no cars were coming and land on the highway, because it wasn't all that busy a road in those days. But I met a photographer there named W.D. Smithers, who was one of the most colorful people I ever met at the time I worked in journalism. He had covered Pancho Villa and was back to the days where he used to send film in by carrier pigeon, and he did just some really frontier photography, and that was sort of the last of his era there. But you could almost feel like you could reach out and touch the frontier by talking to a guy like that. But Lajitas was a small town, but I've always found that small towns, I love small towns, it just seems like the people are larger than life in small towns. I don't know, they just sort of stand out better than people in the cities do, and you find more characters and more people, but it seems like everybody's got a story in a small town, and they're good storytellers a lot of times, the people there. I don't know how you know about a place without talking to the people who live there and hearing them tell what it means to them and seeing what it means to them. In some cases where people have chosen to spend their whole lives there, find out why, what it is that holds them to the place. But that's been the special part, I think, is all the different folks that I've met over the years, and it's been hundreds, but been a great opportunity to travel the whole South and spend almost 35 years going to every place I could think of and finding answers to things you're curious about, and having the freedom to be able to ask a million questions. And I've always liked to ask questions. It's been part of my life, I guess. I'll probably ask way too many beyond patience, but I don't know how you find out things unless you ask.
I'd like to thank the incomparable Les Thomas. The theme music for Authentic South is by Chris Hoke and Brett Eastep. And to see pictures of Les and to hear other episodes, click on over to AuthenticSouth.com.
Do you have a favorite coffee?
You know, I'll drink almost anything but Starbucks. You know,
So you're anti-Starbucks.
well,
huh?
it's a regular coffee. I don't know why their regular coffee is so bad, but I think they have to make the regular coffee bad so people will buy the special coffee.
Until we go south again, thanks for listening.